Good afternoon. You're watching Up to Data, a retail news chat show in which we discuss all things technology, digital transformation, and of course data. On today's show, we have the General Manager of Lego joining us here on the studios at the London project in Blue Waters Island. Thanks so much, Jeroen, for being here with us.
It's a pleasure.
First things first, Jeroen, congratulations on the opening of the new concept store. Tell us more about this new store that you've opened.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're quite excited. It's the first in the region that we're opening. And it's this new store concept that really likes to or where we like to take our experience level to the next platform.
Yeah.
The store has quite a few features that make the shopping experience quite fun and engaging and creative, but also quite personalized. And you're able to make your own portrait, mosaic there, and even, let's say, transform yourself into your favorite minifigure.
Yeah.
So we try to, let's say, bring the brand to life in that store concept, and I think we've done an amazing job of getting there, and I can't wait to see the results and how shoppers actually react to the new concept.
Right, so is this the first concept store of the region, or is it one of the first globally as well?
It's one of the first globally as well, although there have been a few ahead of us, but it's certainly the first in the region that we're part of, which we call Russia, Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa. This is the first one that we're opening, and we're planning to open up quite a few more in the near future as well.
All right, great. I think Lego has been in the forefront of innovation for the longest time, right? Like we were talking earlier, back in the 1930s when you all started, and then 2003, brink of bankruptcy, but the whole revival happened with innovation. This seems like a whole new era of innovation for Lego. So where do you see this new concept going towards?
If you look at right now what's happening in retail, and we as a brand have made a decisive step to say, actually, we're going to be part of the retail landscape. If you look in our past, we were never retailers, we were toy manufacturers, and we had quite a big franchise next to that with movies and series and even games. But we've taken a distinctive step to say, hey, we're going to be part of that retail landscape because we want to have some really nice brand lighthouses where we can bring the entire Lego experience come to life in the store. And therefore, we've invested heavily in the concept, and we're also opening up quite a few stores across the globe. I think right now we're over 700 stores that we've opened with partners, and right now we are not, let's say, slowing down anytime soon, because I think there's still quite a bit of space for more emerging and engagements in the retail landscape.
Right, so I actually went to your concept store, and again, like you mentioned, there's just so many elements there, so many new features there, which are very, very engaging. At this point, like you said, that you're taking the retail route as well, where do you see investments being prioritized within a store to enhance that customer journey and experience?
Well, I think in a couple of areas. If you look at the store becomes more of a theater where it has to be fun, it has to be engaging. You're going to have to drive people to store, and when they come to your store, they're going to have to experience something that they find is memorable and will stick with them, and actually want them to return in the future. When you then look at the shopper journey, we want to make sure that when people come to our stores, they feel that they can find what they're looking for, that they can immerse themselves in the Lego brand experience and the history and the legacy that the brand has. But also experience a couple of fun things that really set us apart from other, let's say, retail experiences out there. We're right now, if you look at some of the things that we're experimenting with, and I think we had a store opening earlier this year in Fifth Avenue in New York, where we're really bringing storytelling around the builds that you create in the store. We're really taking that to the next level, and it's a big adventure. It's a ticketed adventure even, where you come into, let's say, an augmented reality experience, which will really, I think, was really a big fan with the fans coming into those stores, and we're hoping to roll out some more of those innovations in the future in this part of the world as well.
Right, so technology is basically going to play an important role within the stores today, yeah?
Absolutely. Yes, and I think the other element that is key is also to be personal, right? We all want, and I think consumers these days are much more demanding than they were in the past, and consumers they want to be surprised, they want to be engaged, they want to be having memorable experiences, and one of the ways that we're dialing up on that is to also give them more personalized Lego experiences. Now, one of the fun parts of being a GM in this part of the world is that I get about weekly, I get a call from somebody that would like to have their building or their landmark turned into a Lego set. And while the answer is default no on those ones. We are now giving fans more and more opportunities to actually create either their portraits or themselves as a minifigure. So we're making more of those experiences available in store and to our consumers, which I think is really going to be the first step that we've taken, probably on a longer journey where we want to have more personalized and more memorable experience for Lego fans in the future.
Right. So obviously the innovation is driven by creation when it comes to Lego. But speaking of toy retailers in general, over the past 3-4 years, we've seen that not a lot of toy retailers have been doing well. Some of our favorite brands like Toys R Us, or even in this region, the toy store went bust this year. So do you think this is vertical specific with what's happening to toy retailers? Is there a particular reason why a lot of toy retailers globally and even in the region are struggling?
I think there are multiple reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons is indeed the shift in channel, where people have become increasingly more digital and have increasingly more shopped online. And one of the parts where I think retailers have been slow to adapt, and also I think in the Middle East is no different, is that they haven't realized that they're now part of a global marketplace where price transparency and product availability are just globalized.
Yeah.
In other words, I can from my couch order a product from the UK or from the US or from Asia. I can order that, I can see what the price is that I'm going to be paying, and actually it can get delivered to me, and that retailer might not even be present in this market today.
Yeah.
Where I think retailers need to realize, or once retailers realize that they're in a different competition landscape, I think then they have to adjust their game as well.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a retailer that has high traffic and you're able to position your products in the right way, and you're able to also price in a competitive way, I think you're going to be fine, and we see some real good examples of that in this market.
Yeah.
If you're also a retailer, which is also the route that Lego is following a little bit, that you're offering high engagement and you're offering a fun shopping experience and you have good shopper centricity through your CRM programs or other things, I think you're going to be fine as well. But if you're stuck in the middle and you just say, okay, stack them up high and then discount them, I think you're not going to be in a good place. And we've seen, I think, some of the retailers that have been on that route too long and have not adapted, I think, to the changing landscape and the changing consumer. I think those are the ones, in my view, that got into trouble and right now are struggling.
Right. How about competition though? Again, just by talking to some of the retailers in the past, we've realized that, you know, toy is one particular vertical, but there are the mass markets and the big basket retailers who are biting into that segment. Like, for example, there's, you know, the Walmart in the US or the Carrefour here. They do sell toys. They have these massive holiday season Halloween schemes where toys go on great prices and good toys as well. Do you think that is a factor too? But also, it's not just physical retailers, right? There's the Amazons of the world, there's the Noon, there's Toys for Less. There are so many other competitors in the market. Does that scare you as a toy manufacturer and retailer?
No, it doesn't scare us. I think, first of all, I think we're going to see more transformation in this region. If you look at, for example, the hypers and grocers selling toys, that's fairly underdeveloped if you compare it to other parts of the world. So you mentioned Targets or Walmart. If you look at their toy sections, they are considerably larger than, for example, the retailers or the hypers and grocers have in this part of the world.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's even a catch-up there to be made, and I think that trend will continue to see actually that sector in grocery and retail continue to grow. Then, if you are, as a toy manufacturer, if you are distinctively different and if you continue to be consumer centric and you understand what your consumers want and you're offering experience that that kids enjoy playing with and also parents view as great playing experiences, I think then you're going to be also in a good spot. One of the things that Lego has recently dialed up massively is we're seeing that kids are spending more and more time in the digital part of life, and rather than saying, hey, bricks are physical, we've actually said, well, we have a physical component to it, but we've been in video games, for example, for 25 years. And we are more and more looking at play as a spectrum, where you have the physical play and you've got the digital play, but we think there should be really a fluid play that actually goes from the physical to the digital world and back. And one of our recent introductions of and collaborations with Nintendo on Lego Super Mario has been a great example. That product has been doing phenomenal well, and it's really a digital as well as a physical play experience, and hence I think it's quite relevant for what today's kids and also parents want.
Right. Okay. This is something that you've been doing really well, and again, it shows in your results as well. Considering you're able to open stores across the world, you've been able to innovate and also transform and evolve digitally. That's great. What route do you think toy retailers now should take to be able to sustain, survive, and even thrive?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I think they're going to have to make a choice.
Yeah.
They're going to have to make a choice around how customer-centric and how differentiated an experience they are willing to offer, but also are able to offer, right? Let's not forget, everybody has legacy. Everybody has stores that they've invested into, has systems that they've invested into, and those you just don't change overnight. So it takes a bit of time to adjust to those. If you are having good traffic and you're having decent prices, I think consumers will continue to find you, whether you're online or you are physical. If you want to price at a premium, you're going to have to offer a differentiated and more curated and more personalized experience if you want to continue on that strategy. But I don't think you can be stuck in the middle. If you get stuck in the middle, then I think consumers will find more emerging experiences on one hand and cheaper prices on the other end. And I think that's the big trap I think that many of the toy retailers right now, or the big choice that many of the toy retailers right now are facing, is indeed which, let's say, side do I decide to play on?
Sure, and I'm sure data plays a huge role in all of this, right? Because with most retailers, we've seen that they're sitting on this pool of data, and then they just don't know what to do with it. It's just numbers if you're not really using it and nurturing it to its full potential. How is it that you are using and leveraging data?
In a number of ways. Lego a few years ago realized we had a deficit in this area. We called it, we had a technology deficit, and we've been over the last 3-4 years been heavily investing in this, which is transformational in a way, because you're talking about the entire footprint of the of all your systems that you're actually looking at and reevaluating. In terms of retail and what we do with data here is we've invested heavily into business intelligence. So we work with our customers in a way that we would like to know what they sold, and which products, and we have that data pretty much at our hands every week or on a weekly basis, and sometimes even on a daily basis. And with that data, we're able to either make our supply chain much more responsive and nimble to react to that, but also we can see trends that are emerging and we see problems that are emerging, and we can actually be quite proactive. One of the ways that Lego is quite distinctively different, I feel, from other toy retailers is that we are very much incentivized to steer on consumer sales, and that means that if the retailer is selling to a consumer, that's when I get my bonus KPI. Where many other companies, I feel, are much more incentivized to actually make turnover and sell into a retailer. But they don't realize that if you do that and the retailer actually can't move the product because it was the wrong product for that particular market, it was priced it the wrong way, you're creating a problem. That problem is initially at the retailer, but that will very quickly also shift then to your doorstep as well. And so that responsiveness, I think, and looking at consumer sales data, I think, is one area. But then also we are heavily investing into automating, for example, our ordering. We are right now experimenting with a machine learning that if we get an email with a customer order, it automatically gets picked up and gets put into the system. So that, for example, takes out quite a bit of cost and transaction capabilities. If you look at right now what's happening in payment systems in stores, it's phenomenal. If you look at the amount of data they are able to generate around where does this customer shop, what are their preferences, where do they live, how can you actually sell more to them? And I think if you combine that with your CRM system, I think you have a trove of treasure potentially that you can capitalize on as a retailer.
Right. Okay. So again, you spoke about payment solutions, right? There's again so many payment solutions available out there. There's newer ones coming. Buy now, pay later is something that this region is heavily investing on. But when you have to choose for what suits your vertical or your category of business, what is it that you'd go for, and how would you decide on investing at the right technologies, at the right solutions, and at the right partners?
That's an interesting question, and maybe not an easy one to answer. So Lego as a company, as a group, we look for partners and actually can partner with us on a global scale. So hence, for example, a payment solution provider would not be a choice that I would make here as a GM in the Middle East and Africa. It would be actually a choice that gets made in Denmark at our headquarters in this case. Because we look at partners that we can scale with and technology platforms that we can scale with. So I think scalability is certainly a key aspect of it. And then I think secondly, the competency in getting the data and the insights from that data, I think is then the secondary part of that as well. So how much can we do there with that data that we get? How much insight is that the provider able to offer to us? And then thirdly, I would argue also, what are, let's say, the costs of those transactions, and how do we actually make that a viable and economically platform? And it goes beyond just the cost of that we're paying, let's say, for example, to a payment provider. It's also how much time does our shop staff then have to interact with those systems. As you can imagine, if you go to a certain store and you see let's say a queue that is a mile long, you've got many people that abandon their shopping cart and actually go home or go to a different store. Now imagine if a needed transaction doesn't take 15-20 seconds, but it takes 2 seconds, right? All of a sudden you are much more able to service much more customers at the till, and actually you maybe need less shop staff. So I think there's many considerations I think to make in those choices, and it's certainly not an easy, straightforward one, but I think certainly one where you need to consider multiple aspects.
Sure, and another issue that we saw with the toy retailers earlier was with the whole supply chain management, right? In the last 2 years, there were a lot of supply chain conundrums and issues with everything that was going on during the COVID situation. Is there a way to navigate around that though, or is that something that we retailers would just have to, wait it out and see if a solution comes about?
It's been interesting. I think one of the things that happened during COVID is that we saw people spending much more time at home, and therefore we saw spending from travel, from entertainment, from going to movies and eating out. We saw that actually rotate into consumer goods, and toy was a big recipient of that rotation as well. And hence I think our business has been quite robust, and I think toy business as a whole has been quite robust over the last few years, just as, for example, DIY or furniture or other businesses have also benefited from I think the COVID pandemic. Now as we go back to normal, the supply chains need to adapt and shift, and we've seen a quite big challenge in two fronts right now that are facing toy retailers and toy manufacturers. One is that we saw shipping costs out of, for example, Far East and China actually skyrocket, right? Now I won't quote the numbers, but they have been let's say 5 to 10 times what they have been in the past. Oh wow! Which, as you can imagine, if you're ordering a container full of toys, is quite a big, let's say, cost outlay. Yeah. Secondly, we're seeing that components, especially technological components and chips and all the likes, are very, very expensive and are extremely scarce at the moment. And we were talking about, for example, if a Volkswagen plant has to shut down their production because they don't have chips for the manufacturing line. Yeah. If you're competing with that as a toy manufacturer, I know who's going to win that one, because having a factory stand still, and not being able to deliver thousands of cars, of course, you're going to actually going to pay top dollar to actually secure those chips. Yeah. Those are two things that definitely will play out this Christmas or this holiday season, and that's something I think retailers right now are facing on how to actually navigate that. Now, as Lego, I feel we're in a pretty good position, although we have been struggling to keep up with global demand for quite a while now. But we're actually in a pretty good position because we have made a clear choice to actually have our factories close to where our demand is sitting. Yeah. And hence we are less reliant on Far East sourcing, and therefore are more nimble to respond to our retailers' needs and demands. Yeah. Although I will not lie and say it's still quite a big challenge also in the region that we're sitting in today.
Absolutely. So going forward, what are the trends you see shaping this particular industry?
I think in terms of products, I think it's going to be indeed more of a mix between physical and digital play, right? The fluid play I was referring to. I think we're going to see much more of that, and I think we've only seen the start of it. That I think is that part in a nutshell. Although I think there will always be a big portion of physical play, and it's always going to be very important for kids, and it's a big way on how they learn and develop themselves. Then if you talk about toy retail, where toy retailers are going to have to get more consumer centric, they're going to have to understand their customer much better. Yeah. They're going to have to, in my view, offer more engaging and memorable experience to their shoppers as well. And they're going to have to make sure that they find a way to start tackling the challenges that e-commerce growth and the big e-commerce players are putting on them. And those are challenges in terms of pricing and competitiveness. If you look at this region, if you look at the cost, for example, and the cost structure that we have here versus other parts of the world, you're still seeing that the cost structure is not always as competitive as it is in Europe or in Asia or in America. Yeah. That is something that, as you compete in a global economy, that's certainly going to be something where we're going to have to work on as a region to actually make it more competitive. And that actually means the manufacturers, and it has to mean the mall operators, and that means the toy retailers. They're all going to have to, let's say, look at ways to actually shave out costs while still offering a really great experience.
Great, thanks so much for those insights, Jeroen. Definitely learned a lot about the toy market and the toy retail segment.